Hi, my name is Kayla Clark. I am in the Introduction to Liberal Studies course for the spring semester of 2020, Professor Latoya Brown. I am going to be discussing youth violence for my action project. Youth violence is definitely a broad topic. There are many different forms of violence. There's bullying, there is child abuse, verbal, physical, there's cyber bullying. There are many things that could be categorized as youth violence. So I did just want to start by saying it's not just what it sounds like, which is children fighting each other. That's not what I wanted to kind of cover, although it is a part of the topic. I wanted to make it more so about everything that contributes to youth violence. I'm not able to actually go to any places due to the coronavirus pandemic, but I was able to talk to a sheriff's deputy as well as a social worker. I also interviewed several co-workers, friends, family, and even strangers. Being that I work at a doctor's office, I also have been able to kind of use my daily job as a part of my research, because I do encounter social workers checking the status of children's health, if they have any concerns or anything. So that I think that's an interesting way to tie in what I'm working on. Now, I know that many children will not admit to being bullied because of fear of retaliation. They're afraid that, they're going to get in more trouble, they're going to get hurt even worse. There's also kids who are in gangs. In my opinion, it's because of there's a lack of the sense of family at home. Although this is not always the case, there are generally kids who feel that they've created their own family in a gang or in a clique or posse, whatever you want to call it. They have created their safe place with them. So they're not going to see anything wrong with what they're doing. This is just, a way for them to cope with actually being alone. I do feel that there are necessary teams basically already in place for kids who suffer from violence. There are counselors, school counselors even, there's social workers, there's police officers who enforce the law, but unfortunately one of these can't work without the other. A police can go to a scene where claims of violence going on. They can end it there, but the kids won't actually be talked through what it is that they're going through, and they will possibly continue at a different location at a different time. They'll probably get sneaky, and just work around the law. Now, that just means the problem is not actually fixed, it's just managed. In terms of social work, they can, follow through with the kids and kind of just make sure everything is as it should be. But again, that doesn't fix the issue, it manages it. So where I'm getting is counseling, or just someone to talk to with these kids, someone who understands them, someone who can thoroughly figure out what it is that they are lacking in their life and kind of help them piece those things together. To me, a psychiatrist, counselor, therapist, anything like that, I feel is very necessary. A lot of people think that it's lame or unnecessary to talk to someone, when truly it is. I've encountered so many adults who have had youth violence or trauma that they still have not healed from because they have not talked to anyone about it. I asked Mr. Jonathan Lee if social services were involved, and he says that social services are involved to a certain extent. Most of the time it is when the home is deemed a danger to the child. or juvenile, whether it be case of cleanliness or physical harm to the child. So an example he gave was open drug abuse, physical abuse, malnutrition, and abandonment. Another question is for Jonathan was, are they poverty stricken? And he said that also in his experience, the greater percentage of lower income areas, juveniles and adults are prone to be a part of illegal activities and increased crime rate more so than upper class areas. Are there programs in the community that target the end of youth violence? Jonathan says there are various programs and organizations that work to fight youth violence, but as a patrol deputy, he is not very familiar with them, but school resource officers receive more training on the topic because of their role in the schools. I also asked him, where does it occur most frequently? And he said that he thinks it's more prominent in schools. A lot of parents will not call law enforcement because of them maybe feeling like it's not very serious. They think, well, they usually just shrug it off as their kids are just being kids and they don't want to involve law enforcement unless it is a more severe form of violence. And I asked if there was any special challenges being law enforcement called to any of these scenes, and he says there are a lot of challenges as law enforcement officers. They can only do but so much through the legal system with juveniles. Juvenile laws are very different than adult laws, and also some scenes can be very violent or graphic, and it's hard to address the parents of these juveniles while conducting investigations and gathering information. So that is kind of the perspective of a law officer or enforcer. So I did interview a social worker as well. It is important that all hands are on deck in combating the issue of youth violence. My project is not necessarily saying that these things are not already in place. These things have already been established. I just think that it's important to emphasize the importance of it. Rhonda Cox is the social worker that I interviewed, and I asked her. She says, in my own personal community where I live, no, but in the communities that I serve in my professional life, yes. So not necessarily in her home area. She works in a different city than where she lives. Her answer was, in my work community, there are parents in their life. Most are single parents with some degree of dependency to drugs, history of domestic violence, and lack of solid education. This definitely relates to the answer or response that I got from the police officer or sheriff's deputy. And she said that law enforcement is involved, but it's not geared towards reform, but discipline. Which, another thing I was saying, you cannot fix the issue with law enforcement. You can only manage, or in her words, just discipline. Her answer was, most of the families are living below the poverty line, depending on public assistance to provide the family with simple basic needs. There are no current programs that strive for the end of violence. Children feel more connected to their gangs or friends than their family because they are providing the core values and stability the children are yearning to feel wanted and loved. As a social worker, I have the fear of being harmed at any home, regardless of location, because all families fear the unknown. Someone coming into a home and trying to tell a family what they need to change, and they are only there for 2 to 3 hours a month. Youth violence has been a problem for decades. The family unit needs to be reestablished in all social statuses because it's just not the poverty stricken. That being said, I really enjoyed digging deep, getting to know everyone's take on the situation and compare it with mine. I did have some of the same ideas that Mr. Jonathan Lee and Miss Rhonda Cox had, and I'm kind of glad that we were able to all agree on what needs to be done in order to fix this issue. So I hope that you enjoyed my video.